This is the section on scientific research, types of research. Now let's talk about what types of research we can do. We can do archival research. Some researchers gain access to large amounts of data without interacting with a single research participant. Instead, they use existing records to answer various research questions. Archival research relies on looking at past records or datasets to look for interesting patterns or relationships. Researchers might access the academic records of all individuals who enrolled in college within the past 10 years and calculate how long it took them to complete their degrees, as well as course loads, grades, and extracurricular involvement. Archival research could provide important information about who is most likely to complete their education, and it could help identify important risk factors for struggling students. Comparing archival research to other research methods, there are several important distinctions. One is that the researcher employing archival research never directly interacts with research participants, and the investment of time and money to collect data is considerably less with archival research. However, we also have to consider that researchers have zero control over what information was originally collected. Research questions have to be tailored so that they can be answered within the structure of the existing datasets. No guarantee of consistency between the records from one source to another is possible, which might make comparing and contrasting different datasets problematic. Another type of research is when scientists do case studies. Scientists are conducting a case study when they focus on one person or just a few individuals. Some scientists spend their entire careers studying just 10 to 20 individuals. Why? When they focus their attention on a very small number of people, they can gain a tremendous amount of insight into those cases. The richness of information that is collected in clinical or case studies is unmatched by any other single research method. This allows the researcher to have a very deep understanding of the individuals and the particular phenomenon that's being studied. Here's a class question. If case studies provide so much information, why are they not done more frequently among researchers? We can consider the answer to this question by thinking about how this approach is often used when studying individuals who are interesting to researchers because they have a rare characteristic. Therefore, the individuals who serve as the focus of case studies are not like most other people. If scientists ultimately want to explain all behavior, focusing attention on such a special group of people can make it difficult to generalize any observations to the larger population as a whole. Generalizing refers to the ability to apply the findings of a particular research project to larger segments of society. Case studies provide enormous amounts of information, but since the cases are so specific, the potential to apply what's learned to the average person may be very limited. Longitudinal research. Sometimes we want to see how people change over time, as in studies of human development and lifespan. When we test the same group of individuals repeatedly over an extended period of time, we are conducting longitudinal research. Longitudinal research is a research design in which data gathering is administered repeatedly over an extended period of time. For example, we may survey a group of individuals about their dietary habits at age 20, retest them a decade later at age 30, and then again at age 40. Cross-sectional research. In cross-sectional research, a researcher compares multiple segments of the population at the same time. Using the dietary habits that we talked about before, the researcher might directly compare different groups of people by age. So instead of a group of people for 20 years, looking at them to see how their dietary habits change from decade to decade, the researcher would study a group of 20-year-old individuals and compare them to a group of 30-year-olds and a group of 40-year-olds all at the same time. So, while this cross-sectional research requires a shorter-term investment, it is also limited by differences that exist between the different generations or cohorts that have nothing to do with age per se, but rather reflect the social and cultural experiences of different generations of individuals that may make them different from one another. Sequential research examines multiple segments of a population over a period of time. Sequential research incorporates a combination of longitudinal and cross-sectional research designs. In a sequential research design, different groups of people, cross-sections, are measured over time, longitudinal. Using our previous example, researchers would examine the dietary habits of a group of 20-year-olds every year for 4 years, 25-year-olds every year for 4 years, and 30-year-olds every year for 4 years, and 35-year-olds every year for 4 years. This design allows researchers to examine developmental changes over time. It requires less of a time commitment than a longitudinal design, and it enables the researchers to make comparisons for the different age groups while minimizing cohort effects found in cross-sectional designs. Here's an example of developmental research in action, a longitudinal study. Often, longitudinal studies are employed when researching various diseases in an effort to understand particular risk factors. Such studies involve tens of thousands of individuals who are followed for several decades. Researchers can feel confident that their findings can be generalized to the larger population. The Cancer Prevention Study 3, or CPS-3, is one of a series of longitudinal studies supported or sponsored by the American Cancer Society, which was aimed at determining predictive risk factors associated with cancer. When participants entered the study, they completed a survey about their lives and family histories, providing information on factors that might cause or prevent the development of cancer. Then, every few years, the participants received additional surveys to complete. In the end, hundreds of thousands of participants would be tracked over 20 years to determine which of them develop cancer and which do not. This type of research is important and potentially very informative. Earlier longitudinal studies, sponsored by the American Cancer Society, provided some of the first scientific demonstrations of the now well-established link between increased rates of cancer and smoking. Here's another class question. What problems or challenges might researchers have with conducting longitudinal studies? Some limitations to longitudinal research include that these studies require an incredible time investment by both the researcher and the participants. Given that some longitudinal studies take years, if not decades, to complete, the results will not be known for a considerable period of time. They require a substantial financial investment. Also, many researchers are unable to commit the resources necessary to see a longitudinal project through to the end. Research participants must also be willing to continue their participation for an extended period of time, and this in itself can be problematic. Sometimes people move, they get married, they take new names, they might get ill, and they could die. So even without significant life changes, some people may simply choose to discontinue their participation in the project. As a result, the attrition rates, or the reduction in the number of research participants due to people dropping out, in these longitudinal studies are quite high, and they increase over the course of the project. For this reason, researchers using this approach typically recruit many participants, fully expecting that a substantial number will drop out before the end. As the study progresses, they continually check whether the sample still represents the larger population, and they try to make adjustments as necessary. In summary, a case study involves studying just a few individuals for an extended period. Archival research involves studying existing data sets to answer research questions. Longitudinal research collects data on how people change over time. Cross-sectional research compares multiple segments of a population at a single time. And sequential research examines multiple segments of a population over some time.